They served champagne first. That's how I knew something was off. Team lunches at Darrow and Holt were usually quiet affairs. Bottled water, PowerPoint speeches, a polite dessert tray if we were lucky. But today, glass flutes clinking, smiles too, wide, and a round table at Hudson Sky, the kind of rooftop spot you book when you're celebrating or hiding something. Brady Vance was doing both. He stood at the head of the table, sleeves rolled to the elbows, designer watch peeking out like it was casually flexing. Appreciation lunch, he said, for a team that made our merger year sparkle. Everyone laughed, a little too hard. I sipped water. Brady wasn't my boss 2 months ago. He arrived with the merger, slid in after the board, invited. Our last COO to retire early. No ceremony, no legacy speech, just a smiling new face with gold cufflinks and a warpath for restructuring, and now he was toasting us. A toast we all knew was a prelude to something worse. I want to take a moment, Brady said, lifting his glass, to thank each of you for adapting, growing, evolving with the future of this firm. Pause, smile, scan the room. Unfortunately, he added, evolution means knowing when certain functions no longer serve the model. That's when I felt it. The shift in air, the sudden tension, the glance Kara Sloan gave me from HR. Too quick to be casual. And Brady, still smiling, said, Isla Monroe, thank you for your years here. Today will be your final day with Darrow and Holt. No warning, no email, just a champagne glass smile and a cold press of finality in the middle of an overpriced lunch. Someone at the table actually gasped. Naomi, my intern, dropped her fork. I didn't flinch. I set my napkin on the table, stood, slowly, and looked Brady straight in the eye. Are you sure you want to do this here? I asked. He tilted his head. Transparency builds trust, Isla. We're all grown-ups here. Someone chuckled. The kind of nervous chuckle people make when they think they're supposed to. When survival means pretending you're not seeing someone get publicly executed, I nodded. Then, I suppose I'm free to speak too, I said. Brady blinked. I didn't say another word, just smiled politely, picked up my bag, and walked out. Quiet. Composed, not even looking back at the man who thought he just erased me. Because what he didn't know, I still had access. That night, I poured a glass of Cabernet, booted up my secure drive, and logged into the cloud vault the M&A team used before. The new systems rolled out. The folder still existed, hidden under 3 layers of admin nesting. Brady, in his arrogance, had forgotten to revoke my archive access. And there they were, the documents, the ones I personally compiled, flagged, and sent for secondary review. Draft merger contracts, stock option terms, offshore licensing agreements. All loaded with inconsistencies, numbers that didn't match up, private transfer agreements that were never disclosed. And most damning of all, a draft clause suggesting executive prepayment before final valuation. That was fraud, and he knew it. He tried to bury it. And me. But he forgot I'm the one who built the foundation. At 1:47 a.m., I called Kieran Bell. He answered on the second ring. Isla? He said, groggy. I need your help. His voice sharpened instantly. You still have the vault, don't you? Yes. And it's worse than we thought. A pause. I'll be at your apartment in 20. Don't open the door until I knock 3 times? By 2:11 a.m., Kieran was sitting across from me at my kitchen table, sleeves rolled, hair a mess, scanning the files with a growing frown. Brady didn't just cook the valuation, he muttered. He's bleeding assets into his own holding. Account. I said nothing. He clicked open another spreadsheet, eyes narrowing. This clause, it's dated before the board meeting. I know. Kieran looked up. That's insider trading. That's federal, I nodded. You see why I didn't stay quiet? He leaned back, whistled low. He fired the wrong person. No, I said. He fired the right person, The one who could bring him down. Kieran smiled. You ready to drop the hammer? I looked at the screen. I'm just getting started. By sunrise, I had already printed the most critical files and locked them in a steel box under my bed. Digital trails can be erased. Paper whispers louder. Kieran stayed until just after dawn, pacing, muttering legal codes under his breath, flagging violations in Brady's merger structure with a red pen like he was bleeding the pages out one line at a time. He's not just shady, he finally said, slapping the folder shut. He's stupid. These payout accelerators are illegal in any pre-valuation stage. He's got pre-approved incentives signed off by someone named, he flipped the page, L. Keene. My stomach dropped. Elias Keene, the board chair. Keene's involved? I asked. Kieran gave me a grim look. Looks like this whole thing was green lit at the top. I poured more coffee. This isn't just a bad deal, I said. It's a house fire, and they tried to burn me with it. He nodded. We'll need another voice, someone on the inside, someone they didn't already try to silence. I didn't hesitate. I'll talk to Naomi. Naomi Hill wasn't just my intern. She was sharp, fast, and dangerously observant. She'd seen the cracks before I did, saved internal chat logs I barely remembered, and was in earshot during more than one off-the-record hallway conversation. I texted her a single phrase. You were right. We need to talk. She responded in less than a minute. I never deleted the folder. Meet me at the South Bank bookstore at noon. The bookstore was quiet, shadowy, and smelled like old paper and sharper intentions. Naomi was already seated in the back, hunched over a laptop and drinking cold matcha from a plastic cup like it was her only defense. Hey, she said, eyes wide but steady. Hey, she slid a USB drive across the table. I copied everything before they wiped my system. Every Slack message, every off-record memo, including the one Kara sent Brady the day before the lunch. I plugged in the drive. There it was. Kara to Brady. We've moved her out of the chain. Just make it clean. Public is better. Deterrent effect. Public. Deterrent. I wasn't just terminated. I was used. As a warning, Naomi leaned in. They practiced it, she whispered. That little speech? He rehearsed it with Kara 2 nights before. Said you were legacy baggage with a bite. I felt my hands tighten around the table's edge. Kieran was right. They fired the wrong person, because now I had teeth. That night, Kieran and I brought in a third piece of the puzzle. Amelia Griggs, junior accountant, buried deep in compliance and too quiet for anyone to notice, until she flagged a $4.8 million discrepancy in the asset migration list last quarter and had her access mysteriously revoked. She hadn't spoken to anyone since. When I called, she hesitated. You know what happened to the others, right? I stayed calm. We're not going. Public. Not yet. We're building pressure. Quiet, clean, legal. A pause. Then, I still have the anomaly list, but I'm not sending it digitally. We met in a parking garage at midnight. Amelia wore a hoodie, black jeans, no makeup. She looked like someone trying to vanish. She handed me a plain folder. Inside, printouts, handwritten notes, time-stamped anomalies showing asset funneling, premature dividend shifts, and a payment pathway leading to a company I didn't recognize, Orlight Analytics LLC. Cayman registered, linked to a trust account under BV Holdings, Brady Vance. He wasn't just stealing, he was laundering it through a shell firm. Back at my apartment, Kieran spread the files across the floor like evidence at a war crimes trial. This, he said, pointing, is what will get the SEC to move. They won't care about the firing. They'll care about this. I nodded. We need to lock in the timeline. I'll draft a control packet, he said. Something airtight. Enough to send to an investigative contact, anonymously. And Brady? Kieran looked at me. He won't sit still. Once he realizes you're not backing down, he'll come hard. PR hit job, reputation bleed, maybe even legal threats. I'm ready? No, he said. You're not ready. You're armed. At 4:12 a.m., my phone buzzed. Unknown number. No caller ID. I answered anyway. A man's voice, distorted. You're not supposed to have those files. I didn't speak. The voice continued. You put your friends at risk. You put yourself in the crosshairs. You walk away now, and we forget your name. I ended the call, then called Kieran. Time to leak just enough to rattle them. You sure? I looked at the folder on the table. Amelia's handwritten note circled in red. Merger Draft 6B, board approval predated. This is the smoking gun. Yes, I said. I'm done being polite. We dropped the first leak on a Tuesday morning. Not a full expose. Just a whisper. An anonymous tip, bundled with redacted spreadsheets, sent to a private Discord server used by independent financial watchdogs and a few retired compliance analysts. Kieran knew from his previous life, 10 pages, enough to stir the waters, not enough to start a war. We thought it would take a day or two to catch on. It took 2 hours. By 10:23 a.m., a small business blog reposted part of the tip under the headline, Whispers of Merger Misconduct at Darrow and Holt. By 1 p.m., someone on Twitter had posted side-by-side screenshots of the fake financial projections, marked final, with an earlier, unaltered draft we'd never publicly released. Someone inside the building was leaking too. That changed everything. At 2:48 p.m., Brady Vance went live on LinkedIn. A polished video, clearly prepped by a PR firm. Navy suit, charcoal. Backdrop. Tone just serious enough to seem sincere. He called the leak a desperate and amateurish attempt by a disgruntled former employee to derail a legacy-defining merger. He didn't say my name, but he didn't have to. Naomi called 5 minutes. Later. You need to see this, she said. I could hear the shake in her voice. I met her in an old WeWork conference room that Kieran booked under a burner identity. She had her laptop open, eyes wide, knuckles white. This was on our shared drive, buried under old onboarding footage. She clicked play. It was a Zoom call. Low quality, glitchy audio. The participants, Brady, Kara Sloan from HR, and Elias. Keen, board chair. Brady was leaning back in a leather office chair, drink in hand, laughing. His voice came through clear. By the time anyone notices, we'll be offshore. Clean, valued, merged. The girl? Please. I fired her in front of her. Team, she'll vanish. Kara, you think she kept copies? Brady, she's smart, not suicidal. Elias, just make sure it's buried. We don't want another Amelia Griggs mess. The call ended. I stood in silence. Naomi sat still, eyes burning. She kept this, she whispered. Maybe for insurance. Maybe because she couldn't do anything else. I looked at her. She didn't vanish, I said. She came to us. And Brady? He just handed us a live confession. Kieran stared at the screen for a long time. Who else has this? No one, Naomi said. It wasn't flagged. Probably. Missed in their wipe script. He nodded slowly. We're not giving this to a blog. We give it to Talia. Talia Rains met us that night in a Chinatown restaurant known for asking no questions and offering strong Wi-Fi. She watched the video 3 times, then leaned back and whispered, This buries him. Can you verify it? I asked. I'll triple verify, but I'll also have to name sources. No names, I said. Not until the final drop. She nodded. Then we build pressure. Story goes out in pieces. A name here, a doc there. Let him sweat. We released the audio, clipped and filtered, through a freelance leak site. No faces, just Brady's voice, saying, I fired her in front of her team. She'll vanish. That line hit harder than we ever could have planned, because it wasn't just financial anymore. It was personal. The internet devoured it. She didn't vanish Darrow files. Corporate assassin dozens of former employees came forward, most anonymously, some publicly. 2 former interns wrote blogs. A middle manager leaked an NDA template they were forced to sign. 1 brave soul. They released a list of every redundant employee cut in the last 3 months. More than half were women. By Friday, Brady's name was trending for all the wrong reasons. And Kara Sloan? She quietly deleted her entire LinkedIn profile, but the war wasn't won. At 11:03 p.m., Kieran received a letter, certified, hand-delivered, a legal threat. Brady was suing us for defamation, digital theft, and breach of confidentiality. The letter used language meant to intimidate, meant to silence, but it confirmed one thing. He was scared. I looked at Kieran. I'm not backing down. He nodded. I didn't think you would. Naomi handed me a printout, another document from the merger archive. Brady's offshore payment schedule. Phase 2, she said. He was about to cash out, sell and walk. Not anymore. The exposé went live at 7:02 a.m. on a Monday. Talia didn't warn us exactly when. She just sent a 1-line text. It's out. We were still bleary-eyed, sitting in Kieran's kitchen over bad coffee and worse sleep when it hit. The headline blazed across business feeds by 7:10. Exclusive. Darrow and Holt execs planned merger fraud and fired the whistleblower over lunch. Within an hour, the story had hit Bloomberg, Business Insider, and Politico. By noon, the board of Darrow and Holt was in emergency session. Talia didn't hold back. She included everything: the falsified asset projections, the Cayman Islands holding, accounts, the Zoom call audio, the timeline of Isla's public termination, and the names of employees, especially women, targeted in the layoffs. She even published a partial list of terminated staff, citing patterned elimination of risk. She didn't name me, but she didn't have to. The internet figured it out in 20 minutes. I was flooded with messages: former coworkers, strangers, journalists, even silent LinkedIn watchers who had once ghosted me during job hunts. And among them, one email stood out. Subject: I was there too, from Emilia. Griggs Knight protonmail.com body. You were right. I ran because I didn't think anyone would listen. But I kept everything. I'm ready to speak. Emilia hadn't vanished. She'd been waiting at Tide. 12:41 p.m., we got confirmation. Brady Vance was suspended indefinitely pending board investigation. An internal memo leaked minutes later showed that Elias Keene, the board chair, had authorized the predated documents Brady used to justify the merger push. That should have been the climax. It wasn't. At 2:04 p.m., I received a call from Naomi. Her voice was shaking. You need to come see this. Now. She'd intercepted a message. Not meant for her. Not even meant to be seen. It was a Slack screenshot, sent by Mason Chu, one of the junior developers. He'd flagged something suspicious in Brady's email server before access was revoked. A single file, dated the day before my termination. Subject: Contingency Strategy. IAMIT outlined a post-firing plan labeled I am Blackout, internal code for discrediting someone considered externally high risk. IM. Isla Monroe. Attached was a draft. Press release. It said I had been dismissed for unauthorized access to privileged M&A materials and violating confidentiality agreements. It said I had leaked doctored documents. It was dated 3 days before I leaked anything. My stomach turned. They hadn't reacted to me. They had planned to bury me no matter what. By 3:30 p.m., the board announced an external audit of all merger documents. By 5 p.m., Kara Sloan was officially placed on leave. By 6 p.m., I received a message from a burner account. You might have won this round, but the board has more to lose than Brady, and they clean up fast. Kieran read it. They're warning you. No, I said. They're preparing to make me disappear from the story. But I had one more card to play, the final document Naomi had pulled from the pre-wipe cache. It was titled Payment Schedule, Orlight Entity, Phase 3 Disbursement, and at the bottom, Beneficiary, E. Keene, the board chair. He hadn't just signed off. He'd been paid to do it. I sat back, phone shaking in my hands. They were never going to merge, I said quietly. They were going to gut the firm, cash out offshore, and let the investors take the hit. Kieran nodded slowly. And now we bury both of them. But someone was listening. That night, while we slept, someone accessed our cloud repository. Through a ghost IP based out of Romania, only one file was deleted. Keene's payout schedule. The rest remained untouched. A message was left in its place. You hit the COO. Do not touch the chair. I stared at the screen for a long time. You hit the COO. Do not touch the chair. It wasn't a warning. It was a command. And that made me more certain than ever that Elias Keene was the real threat. I met with Kieran and Naomi in the old co-working space later that morning. No more laptops, no cloud. Just 3 notepads, 2 burner phones, and printed copies of everything we'd saved. The air smelled like metal and dust, and for the first time since this all started, Naomi looked scared. They got into the cloud, she whispered. Encrypted backup, 2-factor custom firewall, and they got in. Keene has reach, Kieran said. More than Brady. More than anyone. He's not scared of the media. He's scared of regulators. We expose him. We don't just take down Darrow and Holt. We spark a full-blown federal investigation into boardroom fraud. That's exactly what we're doing, I said. We take him down. Publicly. But someone was already trying to stop us. At 3:12 p.m., Naomi's apartment was broken into. No electronics stolen. Just her notebooks, her printer. A stack of flash drives, all gone. Whoever it was had a key, or bypassed the lock. She called me sobbing, voice shaking so badly I could barely understand her. I backed up everything, I swear. But it's personal now. They were in my home, Isla. They knew where I sleep. I told her to come to me, told her she was safe. But I wasn't sure, not anymore. The next morning, I got a call from Talia. She sounded different. Unsteady. Like someone had pulled her foundation out from under her. I can't run the story. What? The legal department at my paper flagged it. They said it's unverifiable. They're afraid of a libel suit. The firm's lawyers threatened to go nuclear. They're bluffing, I said. They're not. The editor folded. And someone high up is protecting Keene. I swallowed hard. Talia, are you okay? A pause. I'm sorry, Isla. I wanted to be the one to finish this. She hung up, and just like that, my last public channel went dark. But I wasn't done, because someone else reached out. From inside the boardroom, a burner email landed in my inbox 2 hours later. From Phoenix, mirror.protonmail.com, subject. If you want to bring down the chair, you'll need his calendar. Attached, Elias Keene, satphonedump.pdf. It was a log of Keene's encrypted satellite phone calls for the last 3 weeks. One number kept repeating. A Cayman-based contact listed only as Veritas 2, and the timestamps matched every major financial movement in the merger. That night, I met Kieran and Naomi in the storage unit beneath the old hotel Dax had once used for whistleblower meets. We laid everything out on the floor like evidence at a war trial. The payment files, the burner logs, the sat phone numbers, and one final leak. Naomi slid it across the concrete floor, a folder marked Project Burnline, Phase 1. It wasn't just Darrow and Holt. Keene had been orchestrating similar shell mergers for years, gutting mid-level firms, inflating their valuation, and walking away before the collapse. He'd done it 3 times already. We were just the next corpse on his list. The next morning, I walked into the Federal Regulatory Office in downtown Manhattan. Badge on, bag light, eyes steady, and handed the files to a woman named Agent Corinne Levine, a white-collar investigator with the kind of eyes that said she didn't need convincing. "Anonymous source?" she asked. "Not anymore," I said. "My name is Isla Monroe, and I'm the reason Brady Vance is gone." She flipped through the first few pages and nodded once. "We've been waiting for something this solid." Then she slid me a card. "Go home. Don't open your door for anyone but me." At 2:03 p.m., Elias Keene resigned from the board. No press. Release, no comment, just vanished. And 20 minutes later, the SEC froze all pending merger-related assets across 5 states. I thought it was over, until Naomi called me, crying again. She'd received a box, unmarked. Inside, a copy of our leaked files, every last one, and a printed photo of us sitting at the cafe near South Bank, where she first gave me the USB. Across the back, in thick black marker, "We see everything. End this, or next time it's real." The box shook me, not because of what was inside, but because of what it meant. They weren't bluffing anymore. They were watching. They had access, and Naomi had become their next pressure point. We moved her into Kieran's place immediately. Scrubbed devices. Killed all online accounts. Burner phones only. Paper records only. The drive with the sat phone logs and payout documents went into a locked vault at a neutral law office, courtesy of a nonprofit legal protection group that had taken interest in our case. The threat wasn't just personal now. It was political. Whoever was behind Keene, and the ones he'd worked with before, wanted us silenced not to protect one man, but to protect an entire model. A blueprint for corruption. Gut the firm, pad the projections, burn the evidence. Sell the illusion, repeat. But they underestimated one thing. I wasn't alone anymore. On the morning of the press conference, I wore the same black dress I'd been fired in, not out of sentiment, but because it reminded me what it felt like to be underestimated. I stood behind a podium at a private press event arranged by a whistleblower coalition and spoke clearly, calmly, and publicly for the first time. My name is Isla Monroe. I was a senior analyst at Darrow & Holt for 8 years. I was publicly fired during a team lunch by a man named Brady Vance. What wasn't mentioned at the time is that I held access to documents that showed he, and others above him, were orchestrating a fraud involving the firm's proposed merger, executive payouts, and offshore accounts tied to falsified valuation models, flashbulbs, reporters, pens scratching fast. But I didn't pause. I came forward. I provided this evidence to federal investigators. As a result, both Mr. Vance and former board chair Elias Keene have resigned and are under investigation. This is not about personal vengeance. It's about the systems that allow powerful people to profit while silencing those who dare to ask questions. I finished with the same line Brady used on me, flipped inside out. This isn't business as usual. It's the end of pretending. That night, the video of my speech went viral. Isla didn't vanish, not disposable. Burn the blueprint. I received thousands of messages. Employees at other firms, whistleblowers still scared to speak, women who had been told they were too quiet or too curious or not strategic enough. But one message changed everything. Sealed envelope arrived via courier the next morning. Handwritten. Unbranded. Inside, a card. On the front, the name of a new firm, Vantage Ethics Group, a startup consultancy created to oversee corporate compliance in emerging M&A firms. Inside the card, a note in clean pen strokes. You didn't just expose something. You reminded people what clean looks like. We'd like you to lead it. Full autonomy, full backing. Rewrite the rules, Isla. You earned it. Below, 3 signatures. 2 I didn't recognize. The third? Emilia Griggs. I cried for the first time in months, not because I was overwhelmed, but because I'd won. We'd won. Not just against a man or a merger or a boardroom, but against the machine. And now, we were building something better. I accepted the offer. Naomi became my chief of staff. Kieran joined as legal director. Amelia took over systems compliance. And the first time I sat at the head of a conference table, I thought of the rooftop lunch, where it all began, where I'd been humiliated, fired, dismissed. I adjusted the collar of my suit, took a deep breath, and said, "Let's get to work."